with games, the loser is usually the one that doesn't know grammar as well as the winner. And
Yeah.
so we're layering on top of this discomfort around grammar, even more shame. But if we have play, this active creation together is just one of a kind.
Thank you, Solution Tree, for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. For over 25 years, Solution Tree has partnered with schools and districts to deliver research-driven professional development that helps teachers turn their passion into real progress for their students. Check out solutiontree.com/10-minute teacher.
This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Welcome, Patty McGee, the traveling teacher. Her new book, Not Your Granny's Grammar, challenges our traditional approaches to teaching grammar. So, Patty, you love to create learning environments where teachers and students discover their true potential. And your nickname is the traveling teacher.
Having that opportunity to be a traveling teacher and work in so many different classrooms throughout the country, it's given me a lot of time to also play and practice with more updated, interactive, and inquiry-based grammar instruction.
You write about joyful, playful, full of curiosity teaching of grammar. Okay, there are going to be some people who are like, what?
Yes.
Patty, really?
Yes, it's really been a journey. Started as a fourth grade teacher and really worked on my literacy block back in like 1994. And I found that everything just kept getting better in my literacy block except for grammar, because it was the same kind of approach where we believe that when we teach something in grammar, there's automatic application. The way it's been for so many years. I know when I was a student, it was like, okay, we taught you about nouns. Now you should be able to use them very easily and identify them very easily. But in fact, most of us did not learn grammar in that method. Just doing the work I do with teachers, there's often a lot of shame around grammar and not knowing grammar. So we have our grammarians, which I'm just so grateful for, because I often say they're like the giver and the giver. They're holding all like the grammar memories and bequeathing them to us. And then there's the rest of us who are still trying to figure out really how language works. And this approach based on curiosity really has transformed the way students approach grammar and the things that teachers have seen from their students when getting playful with working with words.
What is the most transformative shift and what does that look like?
There's a couple of things that have always been traditional. And one of those is identification as the very first step. So many still workbooks have just an identification exercise. There's almost an undercurrent or belief that if we can't identify, we can't use. And when we teach grammar, it really is for usage. It's not just for the rules themselves, but for writers of all ages to be able to craft their writing, just like a painter might use different brush strokes or a sculptor uses a chisel. We use grammar to shape our words and our writing. And when we think about it like that, and we realize that identification is one thing, but it's not all the things. And identification often comes through studying how sentences are combined, constructed, and expanded. Those are the three buckets, basically, that kind of hold Not Your Granny's Grammar. So it's a very different experience.
My friends who teach grammar, we always talk about this. It's like every year at the beginning of the year, okay, I'm teaching ninth grade and they don't remember what a noun is, but we know they were taught. What's a practical example of a different way to come at this?
Identification is part of grammar learning. It doesn't need to be the first step. So I really like to start with sentences, and specifically from second grade up, simple and compound sentences, and from third grade up, simple, compound, and complex sentences, because the sentence is the container of all parts of speech and it's the building blocks of writing. When we're studying different types of sentences, comparing them to each other, constructing them from each other, revising them, and we start to use the words like noun and verb. And as we're constructing these sentences, it becomes much easier for students to be able to use that lingo because they've experienced how they're constructing sentences. When we think about it, there are so many words that act as other parts of speech. Like, for example, coordinating conjunctions can be a lot of other things. And so it also gets really tricky the older kids get to identify these parts of speech because the sentences are longer, more complex. And if it's in books that have been published, not for grammar, but for the world, authors use grammar like an artist, like I was saying, that
Yeah.
they don't always include a noun. They write in fragments. They sometimes don't include the comma before the coordinating conjunction in a compound sentence. It's all style. And so I think of it a little bit like Picasso. Like he needed to be a fine artist first. So he learned the rules and then he went all Picasso on us.
Do people still ask you about diagramming?
Yes. Number one, I just want to say I wasn't the ultimate diagrammer. I have a co-author with this book. His name is Tim Donahue, who is
Yeah.
the grammarian. So I take on the instructional practice side. Even after this is my third book, I still cannot hold on to the grammar concepts the way that some people can. And so if we're diagramming sentences, how do we then create our own writing from that? And so I wouldn't say it's a practice we would never use, but I have some ideas for some really good alternatives.
So, Patty, I remember my last week in high school closing my grammar book and thinking, okay, now I don't ever have to diagram another sentence again. Grammar did not mean a lot to me until I became a published author and blogger. Are there any meaningful projects that help grammar come alive?
Yes, I have so many ideas. So there's an approach that I like to call sentences from a sentence. And that would be where we would go and find a quote, create a quote ourselves, or even ask AI to do it for us. And we want it to be rich in words and punctuation. We can even choose more than one sentence. Once I find that quote, I paste it into a doc and then I enlarge the font so that we come in with scissors, cut out each word and cut out each punctuation mark. And then like literally manipulating these words to make sentences from those words. So it can be just the shortest sentence you can make. Now let's expand that or let's play around. Does this make sense? And that type of manipulation, similar to math, right?
Yeah.
Is so engaging when kids do this in partnerships, especially because then they're deliberating over, is this really a sentence? Or I think if you need this in terms of creating a full sentence, or as a teacher coaching into that and saying like, you're almost there, just two more things that would make it a sentence. And one way to incorporate then tech into that is to record those sentences. And so that they can have these sentences that they can model other sentences off of.
That sounds kind of playful, doesn't it, Patty?
Yes. And that's the thing about play and games, the difference between them. So one of the things that happens with grammar is often there's a lot of shame around it, not knowing it, not being able to remember it, forgetting it and relearning it. And sometimes there's this feeling of embarrassment around it. And with games, there's usually a winner and a loser. And so the loser is usually the one that doesn't know grammar as well as the winner. And so we're layering on top of this discomfort around grammar, even more shame. And it just starts to amplify and snowball. But if we have play, that means we've added enough structure, but also flexibility that we can't predict the outcome, that whatever kids create from that is unique to them. There may be overlaps with others, but there's still this active creation together is just one of a kind. And that's where it feels playful.
So, Patty, there are a lot of teachers who struggle with limited resources. So, is there a low-cost, high-impact literacy practice you recommend that teachers could just start using right away?
Yes, I like grammar manipulatives. I'm really into things that are simple, powerful, and free. And so I've called it my SPF seal of approval. The sentences from a sentence is SPF approved. Another is basically creating a table and then choosing the grammar focus. Let's say the grammar focus is nouns, verbs, and those that can act as both. I ask kids to, in partnerships, they'll just have one set. First, they just make their own categories just to get to know the words. And then I'll give them the categories and I'll say nouns, verbs, and those that can act as both. And it is so rich in conversation and debate. They're using the words in sentences as examples, deliberating and debating over whether it works or doesn't work, belongs or doesn't belong, and sometimes even comparing it with another partnership and kind of proving why what they have in that category belongs there.
You talk about John Hattie's work as you progress.
Yes. Well, the number one thing that comes to mind when I think of Hattie's work is just how important the relationship with the teacher is. And when we are playful in the classroom and we are supporting that play through coaching, through gentle feedback, and almost like delighting in the things that they create, we are building relationships around that. I love things that have those layers. So that's building relationships. If they're in partnerships and I'm coaching, it's building language because kids are talking to each other. It's building social emotional learning because kids are talking to each other, and they're learning grammar. So all in one package.
Play and relationship and having fun are just so much part of great learning. Is there one thing you can just share that will blow people's minds about, yes, we can have excitement in grammar?
So there was a third grade class that was studying simple and compound sentences and how to take two simple sentences and turn them into a compound sentence. And so they had done a lot of play with that. And the teacher told me that one day the front office secretary came on the announcements, and she's British. And she said, "It is raining out. There will be an indoor recess." And so one third grader stood up and was like, "I'm going to turn that into a compound sentence." And then in his British accent, he said, "It is raining out, comma, so we will have an indoor recess, period." So it was just like the spontaneity of how playful grammar finds its way into so many things when kids have that type of experience.
Our attitudes about whatever we teach has to be, hey, let's have some fun. Life's too short to be bored. And one thing you can guarantee, if you're a teacher who's bored, they're going to be bored too. And I don't want my kids bored. I want us to have some fun.
I have many other ideas that are simple, powerful, and free through my website, pattymcgee.org.
The book is Not Your Granny's Grammar, Patty McGee. So thanks for talking with us, Patty. One of my favorite publishers and PD organizations is Solution Tree, the sponsor of this episode. For over 25 years, they've been a partner to schools and districts looking to make real change by equipping teachers and administrators with everything that they need to help students achieve. Solution Tree helps schools get results because they know that just like every student's needs are different, schools, they have different needs too. Solution Tree will build a customized plan for your school and help implement research-based solutions on site at your school. Solution Tree can help your school improve student achievement, teacher satisfaction, and Solution Tree can help you improve your school culture. Check out what Solution Tree is doing at solutiontree.com/10-minute teacher. Check it out today. Thanks for tuning in to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Watch the video version of this podcast and catch my new radio and TV show, Cool Cat Teacher Talk, on YouTube and a radio or TV station near you. Join my Cool Cat Teacher Classroom Matters newsletter at coolcatteacher.com/newsletter. Leave a review if you found this helpful. See you later, educator.